Tonight on CTV News, plans are announced for a massive development in central Christchurch. We have the details. A sigh of relief for Redcliffe's schools, and is Christchurch forgetting about those who use wheelchairs?
Broadcasting across Canterbury from the CTV studio, this is First at 5.
Good evening. It's a design that's been 20 years in the making, but after delays caused by the earthquakes, Ngāi Tahu has finally announced plans to redevelop the police block in the CBD. Jared McCulloch explains.
It's been a long time coming, but now the site housing the former police station will soon be a thing of the past, with ever-increasing development. The Prime Minister was in town to see Ngāi Tahu unveil their plans in the central city, a development costing around $150 million, with the first piece of construction taking place in June. The site will see both commercial and residential features as part of its master plan. The group took up the ownership of the land back in the mid-90s and are planning to transform the block between Cambridge Terrace and Cashel, Hereford and Montreal streets. And the development manager says they're happy with their final product.
We're really excited by the master plan. We think it meets a lot of needs. It's a truly mixed-use development. It is a phased development and it will depend on the market, but we're really pleased and proud to be able to present this today.
He says they're planning to start with the commercial side. 2
office buildings, both 5 stories each, around about 8,000 square metres each, and a car park that runs through from Hereford Street to Cashel Street.
The site will also have a landscaped area where the public can go and enjoy the new architecture. There's been a lot of development taking shape across the Avon River, but Craig says it's time for the other side to show some progress.
The site itself is in a critical location with the blueprint. It meant that the river became the centre of the city rather than the back of the city. So this is now part of the CBD.
Well over half of the buildings in Stage 1 have been taken up for lease, with the government being one of those tenants. Once having police on the site, now we'll see Ministry of Education staff, and they're confident to fill all the spaces. The site may include inner-city apartments, taking up the Montreal Street side of the King Edward's Barracks site, but they may not go ahead due to market demand.
This particular master plan over the last 3 years, and as there's more focus on inner-city living, we see that this is a good opportunity. I believe personally it's a short-term opportunity, but I think we need to provide a good offering which I think will be readily acceptable in the market. So if we can get that market demand, we will certainly be looking at building these.
Back in November last year, Ngāi Tahu Property announced preparations to demolish the former Christchurch police station by implosion, scheduled to occur in the first quarter of this year. But when CTV asked them about the implosion, there was no clear date given.
In terms of the police station, there is a process in place now for demolition of the site. It's being stripped out currently. It will be gone from the site and the site handed over to us for construction to start in July 2015. The date is yet to be finalised, so we've still got to fix that date. There's still a lot of work to be done in there.
So it's not known the exact date, but it'll be gone by the end of June this year. The car park is due to be finished and ready first by the end of next year, and the 2 buildings completed by early 2017. Jared McCulloch, CTV News.
It was a clear day in Christchurch City today, wasn't it? Except if you were on Blenheim Road. A small fire broke out on the top of this building just after 10 o'clock this morning. The fire service says roof paper caught on fire. There were no injuries reported. There's a sigh of relief for parents and staff at Redcliffe's schools tonight. The government's decided to extend the consultation period. The school will now have an additional 2 months to make its case to the government.
Some relief for Redcliffe's primary, with the Education Minister extending the consultation process over the future of the school site. The Minister of Education, Hekia Parata, wrote to the stricken school about the deadline for submissions, which was due to be May the 1st, but has now been extended by an extra 2 months, with the date set for July the 1st. Redcliffe School was forced to move from its site in June 2011, when rockfalls from the cliffs above caused concern for the educational facility after the numerous aftershocks of the February quake. But after geotechnical reports were released, the school thought it would be going back to its previous home. However, last month, the Education Minister opened the proposed closure after public consultation, although many have suggested this is just a stalling tactic for a decision to close. If the closure does go ahead, Redcliffe's would see its site disappear by June next year. The school is currently working out of the Van Ash Deaf Education Centre, a few kilometres around the road in Sumner.
McDonald's has decided to go back to the bargaining table. The Unite Union is hoping the fast food giant will finally eliminate zero-hour contracts for its workers.
The country's largest fast food chain has heard loud and clear about anti-zero-hour contracts after a number of protests erupted around the country. Workers from McDonald's stores in Christchurch gathered with Unite Union members at the Linwood restaurant last night, wanting further changes to their contracts, including higher pay and more secure hours after the two couldn't come to an agreement. On Monday, the burger chain, which has the highest number of staff within the fast food industry in New Zealand of 9,000, offered to guarantee employers at least 80% of their rostered hours, but could change their hours week to week. Unite Union says it wasn't happy with the decision, meaning it was back to the streets to protest for an improvement. In a statement, McDonald's says whether it's scheduled or worked hours, it has committed to moving away from zero-hours contracts and to bargaining and working through the detail with Unite Union, but that Unite had walked away from the bargaining table. However, today, McDonald's said it would continue negotiations with the union. So far, Burger King and Hell Pizza have agreed to guarantee hours for their workers, reaching 100% of their average rostered hours, while Restaurant Brands, which owns KFC, Pizza Hut and Starbucks, will offer their staff at least 80% of their average hours over the previous 3 months of work. Wendy's is the only other burger chain that hasn't put forth an offer, but Unite is happy with the progress so far.
It's one step closer to completion, but the road expansion of the city's western corridor won't come cheap, especially with the new Gateway Bridge on Memorial Avenue.
Next month, on the next stage of the forward laning of the Western Corridor route between Christchurch Airport and Belfast, the $112 million project will be spent on the 4-kilometre stretch between Avonhead Park and Hewwood Road and is expected to take 2 years to complete. The works will include the construction of a Gateway Bridge interchange at the Russley Road and Memorial Ave intersection, improving cycle lanes and pedestrian facilities. The government says the extension is needed to cater for expected increased freight and commuter traffic in the area, and the bridge will promote a good image of the city to arriving tourists. The Western Corridor is expected to be completed in 2018 and is part of the government's $900 million spend on the Christchurch roading network.
Well, still to come here on CTV, it's a very important campaign from the CDHB. It's called Conversations Count, Planning for Your Death. It is an uncomfortable subject, but it is a very important campaign, and Jane Goodwin from the CDHB joins me to discuss that next on the program. Hi, I'm Chris Lynch. Join me every Monday at 8:30 on CTV as we discuss the issues affecting you, your family and everything to do with Canterbury. That's CTV 8:30 right here.
Computer not working? Replace or repair? DIY or get a technician? Looking for parts? Thinking of upgrading? Need accessories? You've got questions, we've got answers. Global PC.
The preparation, the devotion, the fearlessness, the intensity. Runway model management. First impressions are everything.
Made to measure interiors, made with care, made for you.
Join Graham Sinclair and the team at Gone Fishin' as they bring you great stories, fishing tips and beautiful scenery. Gone Fishin', Friday night at 8:30, right here on CTV.
Welcome back to CTV News. Death and dying. They're hard topics to discuss, especially when the end is near for family members, but having these conversations is important, according to a new campaign just out today by the CDHB. Jane Goodwin, who is with the CDHB, joins me now to discuss conversations that count. It is that awareness campaign, isn't it? And it starts right today. Give us the background on this. Why is this campaign so important?
So Conversations That Count has come from our advanced care planning campaign, and it's really looking at encouraging people to start thinking and talking about the things that are important to them, especially towards the end of their life.
Why have you decided to start this campaign now then? What's changed, if anything?
Well, not really probably anything. I think it's just that consumers are getting the sense that actually they have a part in this. They no longer have to just say, okay, the doctors are saying this is what I need to do, so let's go with it. It's the opportunity to say, what's important to me? What is the care and treatment that I might like to have in this situation? What are the things that are important to me? And it may be saying, absolutely, I want you to do everything that's possible. Or for some people, it might be saying, actually, there's a point that when I get to that, actually my comfort and dignity is a little bit more important at that stage.
Jane, as I spoke to you on News Talk ZB, the aim of this campaign is not necessarily focused to elderly or those at the end of life. It's actually focused on anybody.
Absolutely.
Because we as New Zealanders don't like to discuss the inevitable, do we?
No, I think just in general, people aren't very good at talking about death and dying. You know, they say the two things you can be sure about in life are death and taxes.
Aren't you just a cherry?
I know, but I guess it's one of those things that we don't contemplate all that much. It's easier not to think about it, but it is important, and we know from the research that most of us think that if something happened, our loved ones would be able to speak for us and say what we would want. But when we look at it and do the research, actually we find that what our relatives think we would want is often quite different than the reality of what we do want. So by having these conversations, we're bridging that gap, and we're letting people know and see, instead of guessing and hoping they've made the right call, they can say, actually, I know this is what Mum wanted.
It is all about awareness, isn't it? It is an uncomfortable conversation, but it's all very well to have your will in place, even though that is an uncomfortable thing to do, but it extends to more than that, isn't it? It's about how you're going to feel should the inevitable happen, should you be in a car accident, should you have an unexpected stroke, a heart attack, whether it's not looking too good. It's uncomfortable, but why is it necessary? It's an obvious question, but you know.
It's the importance of getting your voice out there, saying what you want. You know, everybody has different opinions around these things. Everybody's had different experiences over their life. So what people want and what's important to them is different. And this is the opportunity to hear their voice, to hear what's important to them and get that real sense so that we can tailor the care around what they would want for themselves.
I think people watching this program right now may want some kind of example as to what you're actually meaning. So we're talking about an informal conversation any day of the week, at any time, aren't we really?
Yeah, so what Conversations That Count's encouraging is to say, you know, sitting with your loved one saying, actually, you know, I've got donor on my licence. If something did happen, it would be really important for me if I died in the right kind of way or had the accident that you did donate my organs. Or it might be saying, you know, actually, if something happened for me, my quality of life is more important than my quantity. Or for someone else, it might be, actually, I want you to do everything you can for as long as you can. Whatever the teams and the doctors offer me, I want you to say yes to it because that's important. So it's about that individual and what's important to them.
Jane, this is the second year this campaign has been running. Do you think we as Kiwis, are we starting to reflect more on our mortality, do you think?
I think we're getting better at realising that this is kind of a bigger picture. You know, in general, we're actually starting to think more about our death and dying. Funeral plans and things are becoming much more part of the everyday speak and things that people think about and do. And I guess this is just another part in that process of thinking and planning and knowing what's important. So as you said, along with your will and your funeral plan, this is another step, and it's about that time before you die, not it's the dying process that's it's kind of thinking about, and how you want to live your life leading up to that time as well.
I always feel so uncomfortable talking to you. But you know, I always say that. Why is that though? Because the one thing that you and I share in common, we're going to die.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think our own mortality is a tough thing to contemplate. Some people actually have a really clear understanding of what they want and what's important to them. They're very good at thinking these things through. Other people do find it a really tough thing. This is voluntary. It's not something that you have to do, but we would encourage you to have these conversations because it does make a huge impact on your family, especially towards the end of your life. What we find from the research, an Australian study found that actually family do significantly better after a person's died when they've been involved in the advanced care planning processes.
Right, because they
instead of-
know what they may have wanted.
Instead of guessing and thinking, gosh, did we make the right decision? Did we make the right call? Did we go with the things that the doctor said? You know, and someone saying, oh, I'm not sure whether she'd want that, and someone else says, oh, but I think she would. Everyone's on the same page and saying, actually, we're doing what Mum wanted, or this is what we've talked about. We know this is what she'd want in this situation.
For more information on this campaign, what can people do, Jane?
So we have the Conversations That Count awareness campaign. There's the Facebook page, there's the web page. Within the Canterbury region, there's quite a lot of information on health info that people can access as well, or they can contact me at the CDHB and have a conversation as well.
Jane, really nice to speak with you. Thanks so much for coming to the studio.
Thank you very much.
And well, what do I say? I hope the campaign goes well.
Go forth in ACP and have a good conversation that counts.
All right, thank you so much for coming to the studio.
Thank you.
For more information, don't forget to check out the CDHB's website. That is for sure. It is a brilliant website. Well, still to come here on CTV News, the week's business roundup and your region's weather. Do stay with us.
With all the latest innovations in the world of technology, Shift has everything you need to stay informed and in the know. Shift, 2:15 on Monday, right here on CTV.
Opus is recreating the heart of Canterbury. From large-scale projects to commercial buildings. Your design, your vision. Opus.
In your life. Colour Steel, the roof of New Zealand.
Diversity. No deposit. Instant finance. Convenience. Open 7 days. Austin Motor Company.
Drive It showcases the new arrivals to the motoring world, comparing and testing the latest models to discover which one is the best. Drive It, Sunday afternoons at 2:30, only on CTV.
Welcome back to CTV News. So what is it like to have a disability in this city? Well, many Canterburyans battle with this every day with buildings that are just simply not designed for wheelchairs. So one mother and her daughter want to give the Christchurch City Council a wake-up call. Here's Marcus Gibbs.
An emotional plea for help during the 4th round of Mayor in the Chair.
When you're building, when you're planning for the city, I want you to see her. I want you to think of her.
17-year-old Ella is confined to a wheelchair, and she's living in a city that stops her from reaching her full potential.
There are a lot of areas we can't get into the community. We can't get into the Mayor's chair today.
This isn't the first time the disability community has spoken up. In 2013, Green List MP Mojo Mathers delivered a petition to Parliament demanding full access to buildings in Christchurch for disabled people. More than 6,000 people signed up. But there have been no new rules, no changes in regulations forcing developers to make their buildings accessible to all. Lorraine is continuing to push the case and wants the issue of accessibility to become a key focus of the rebuild.
I want you to see her chair, and her life is tough.
Hearing from Ella hit home hard for the city councillors.
I think it was quite moving to hear that, and that'll certainly be an image that sticks with me throughout the long-term plan.
It does make you think a little bit deeply about accessibility in our city and what we can do as a council to actually remedy that.
Electric wheelchairs are commonplace now, but many of the buildings that have sprung up over the last century were never designed to be accessible by people with disabilities.
So she's a teenager and she wants to do the same things her peers do. She wants to go to the beach. She wants to get into all the buildings that they get into. She wants to go to the concerts and be able to sit with them.
Perhaps one day that will change, but the Christchurch City councillors say it's not an overnight fix.
It's really easy to say, right, we'll put in all this regulation and say that everything has got to be accessible and we'll do a complete overhaul. Wonderful, but it costs money, and you've got to balance the commercial realities of people just saying, well, we're not going to do business here. If you don't have people doing business here, you don't have a city. And if you've got no one in a city, then it doesn't really matter how accessible it is.
Councillor Goff says all developers should be thinking accessibility.
Why the hell would you actually cut out a sector of society that could be your customers? So I think it does make business sense to have an accessible city.
Away from the central city shops, there are many aspects of life that Ella is missing out on.
One of the things I'm really passionate about is getting her to the sea. You know, being able to just get into the water. We can't get her to the water. She sits up on the dunes and she looks at her friends down below, and it breaks my heart.
This family is hoping the council will heed their words.
We just want a fair go, that's all.
Jamie Goff wants to make sure the topic of accessibility makes it onto the long-term plan agenda, so the council can do everything it can in the future to make sure people like Ella have full access and no restrictions. Marcus Gibbs, CTV News.
And now here's Warren Head with this week's Business Roundup.
I'm Warren Head from headliner.co.nz. It seems like everything's going up and very little is going down, apart from the dairy prices. There was another auction last night. The dip was a smaller one this time, not as serious as the previous one, which was a big fall, we call, of about 11%. So the farmers will be taking a little bit of relief from that. But what has been going up are food prices. You probably noticed that the things on the shelves are costing just a little bit more. Well, they really are. Food prices have actually increased at the fastest rate in 3 years. And what's driving it up? Fruit and veggies in particular. Well, one of the things I noticed, apart from fruit and veggies, was the price of biscuits and cakes and things like that, up about 4% over the year. Going back to the fruit and the veggies, they're up about 7% in 1 year, driven particularly by meat and poultry and fish all going up, around about the same rate as inflation, about 2.5%. And bread and cereals are up in value as well. And get this, yogurt up about 7%. Because they've cut the discounting in the supermarkets, so you're paying full price now. So that's what's happening there. What is also moving, of course, is property, and million-dollar homes are common now in Auckland as they surge up there, and we're picking up that problem down here as well. So not surprisingly, one of the chieftains at the Reserve Bank, in giving a speech the other day, talked about the fact they can't really control it with monetary policy and needing something else. I think he was hinting at all those people who come in and buy a property and then shoot off and put in tenants or absentee, possibly from overseas, and talking possibly about putting some sort of a tax on them, the dreaded capital gains tax on landlords rearing its head there. There's going to be another speech for the Reserve Bank next week, and I imagine they'll be picking up on that topic yet again. Further on the property front, the Bank of New Zealand is going back into the business of selling home loans through mortgage advisors. Those of us who are a little bit longer in the tooth remember they bailed out of that activity about 10, 12 years ago, but this time they picked up about 100 selected advisors in Auckland and Christchurch to kick this toehold off back into selling mortgages through mortgage advisors. And on the citywide front, one thing that caught my eye was the situation with New Brighton. where the New Brighton Business and Landowners Association saying that the City Council's new long-term draft plan that's out for consultation doesn't please them very much. Stage development is central to the rejuvenation of New Brighton. They say it's about time the City Council realised that there's been 30 years of economic decline there, and they're frustrated with this, and solo projects just simply won't cut the ice anymore. So New Brighton's putting its hand up and saying, what about us? I'm Warren Head for headliner.co.nz.
And now it's time for the region's weather.
Good evening, Canterbury. Let's take a look at your weather. Timaru, you're on 14 today. Temuka and Geraldine slightly warmer on 15 degrees. Ashburn and Methven, you both shared 15 today. Rakai, 15 for you. Darfield, Leeston and Rolleston, you all hit a high of 15 degrees today. Lincoln and Christchurch, you both shared 15. Over in Akorau, you are all on 14 today. Kaiapoi, Rangiola and Amberley, you hit a high of 15 today. Moving further up the region, Calverton, Hamner Springs and Cheviot, you were the warmest place to be today, only on 16 degrees though. Kaikoura, 15 for you. Well, it's looking to get much warmer tomorrow. In Timaru, it'll be fine at first with some high cloud increasing during the day and mild northerly winds. Expect some rain by evening. Your low tonight is 2, tomorrow's high 19 degrees.
Bluebirds fly.
Ashburn and a fine Friday's in store for you with some increasing high cloud and milder temperatures. That rain will develop later on in the evening. Tonight's low is 1, tomorrow's high 19 degrees.
Wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind.
To Christchurch now, it'll be sunny at first with some high cloud. That will lower during the afternoon. There'll be some usual northeasterly breezes. Expect rain too tomorrow night. Your overnight low is 2, tomorrow's high 18. Kaikoura, it'll be cold tonight, but there'll be a milder day for you tomorrow with some high cloud increasing and northerly winds. Your low tonight is 1, tomorrow's high 14 degrees. Let's take a look at the other areas around the region now. Temuka and Geraldine, some cloud for you all day, 19 degrees. Methven, a fine start, then some cloud coming later on, 19 degrees. Rakai, just some cloud on 19. Darfield, Leeston, Rolleston and Lincoln, expect some sun at first, but that cloud will come in later on in the day, 19 degrees.
High above the chimney top, that's where.
Over in Akorau tomorrow, fine at first, then some cloud, slightly cooler too on 18 degrees. Further north, Kaiapoi, Rangiola and Amberley, the sun will be out when you wake up, but that cloud will be hanging around by the time you get home, 19 degrees. And Calverton, Hamner Springs and Cheviot, fine at first, then some cloud, 19. Looking ahead for Canterbury now, there'll be periods of rain at first on Saturday morning, but that will clear with some sunny skies coming through later on in the day and cool southwesterly breezes dying, changing to northeasterlies. As for Sunday, it'll be fine with some high cloud increasing and moderate northeasterly winds. It'll be fine at first on Monday with some high cloud and mild northerlies, but expect the southwest winds coming in with rain developing during the afternoon. As for Tuesday, the showers will clear, but the skies will remain mostly cloudy with a cool southerly wind, which will die out later on. And Wednesday next week, mostly cool and cloudy with some moderate northeasterly winds and sunny periods developing later on in the day. But for now, that is your weather for Thursday.
Thanks, Jared. And that is CTV News for Thursday. Have a great night.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.